Okay, great. So, welcome to the very first episode of Bubble News. So, what this is going to be is a monthly roundup of the most interesting things that happened in the Bubble ecosystem. This is the very first episode, and I'm just going to go through four major things that happened. Hopefully, by watching this video, you can get a recap of some of the most important things and perhaps a few things that you might have missed. So, let's get straight into it. The first thing I'm going to talk about is Bubble's AI vision. This is based on the AMA that Emmanuel and Josh had. Then some updates to the platform that were recently launched, changes to the policy documents of Bubble, and lastly, what's been happening in the community. So let's get straight into it. So the first thing we want to talk about is Bubble's AI vision. So if you go to Bubble's landing page, they've changed the header. Back in the day, it used to speak more of like no code. It wasn't AI powered app development. This is new. They've definitely pivoted the way they think of the Bubble platform and the messaging that they want to put out into the world. So in light of this, Emmanuel and Josh recently had an AMA where they spoke about the Bubble vision. And they raised some interesting points that I want to quickly go through. So the first thing is, what is the vision for Bubble AI? So from this discussion, a few things stood out for me. And there was a part where Emmanuel said, the AI that we're building is going to be interpreting the different patterns in your application. It can understand the intent of what your application does. And I think this is going to be very, very powerful. Having an AI that understands the core concept of what you're trying to accomplish, and then you can leverage that AI to iterate your application and improve it. I think it's just going to accelerate the speed of development and probably improve the quality of applications that you can actually execute with Bubble. But I think another sort of implied aspect of this AI having an understanding of the intent of your application is for other developers, because when you hand over an application to another Bubble developer, I can imagine that this AI will be a tool that the new developer can leverage to understand what the previous developer was trying to execute. It can become sort of an internal documentation of the application and something that also does maybe optimization and improvements. So I think this is going to be very, very powerful, and that was one thing that stood out from this discussion. And then another point that I really liked was from Josh when they were talking about the difference between building applications with code versus building applications with Bubble. And the way he put it across was very succinct and makes a lot of sense in my mind. And he said, what we spit out can be understood by everyone. And I can testify that that definitely makes sense. If you try and use an application like Lovable or Cursor, what you're going to get is code. And the question is, what do you want to maintain over the long term? Do you want to maintain a UI interface that's built in Bubble that you can understand simply by looking at, or workflows that are written in English that you can, basically understand by looking at? Or do you want to maintain something that's built in Python, JavaScript, and all these coding languages? I think the answer depends on who you are as an individual. If you're someone who came into the no-code space from a different industry, an example myself, I came from finance into no-code, so I don't really have a coding background. At this point, I've interacted with applications for so long that I do have some understanding of code, but it's not at the level of someone who was natively building applications in code and now has access to an AI builder like Lovable, Cursor, Bolt, all these platforms that are coming up. I think for that person, they might be more inclined to continue building with code. But if you are not natively a code person, you prefer to use Bubble. And I would argue that many more people would prefer to maintain an application that abstracts away the code. So from that perspective, if Bubble was listed on the stock exchange, I would be bullish on it. And I would argue that this is a company that's going to continue growing. Then another thing they spoke about was the issue of training data. And what they said is they're not going to use users' applications to train their AI models, which makes sense. If you go into Bubble's policy documents, there's a part where they speak about the structure of the Bubble application and what you build out. And the analogy that they give is of Microsoft Word, that Microsoft owns the application Microsoft Word, but they do not own what you write in Microsoft Word. That's yours. So it's very similar to what you have in Bubble. From that perspective, they're not going to be training their AI models on what we build. However, I would actually argue that they probably should be doing that. And the reason being is an AI system is only as good as the data that goes into it. So garbage in, garbage out, right? And I would argue that Bubble does not have the largest set of training data with regards to high quality applications that they can feed into this model. The ecosystem of Bubble developers has built some really, really powerful applications out there. And for them to actually get this model to work really well, I would argue that they would need to train their models on some of their data. These applications have already solved pretty complex problems, and by getting access to that data and feeding it into their AI system, naturally the output is going to be of a higher quality. Its usefulness will be higher to us as developers. Now, the question is, how do you get that training data? I would argue that Bubble should reach out to the community and see if people are willing to provide their apps to be trained into the model for a fee, essentially to buy these applications as training data for their models. I've seen OpenAI do something similar where they have partnerships with these major publishers like the New York Times, LA Times, all these big organizations that publish high quality information, and they're paying a fee to access that information. I would argue that Bubble should look into such a model if they really want their AI models to be super, super powerful, So here's my question to you. If Bubble was willing to pay you, would you be willing to have them train on your apps? I would. We've built some applications where we never found product market fit, but we solved some really complex things in that application. And in those scenarios, I'll definitely be willing to provide that application to be trained into the model. So yeah, I think that's something that they should look into. All right, so the next thing we want to talk about are updates to the Bubble platform itself, starting off with the biggest one and perhaps the most controversial one, which is the new workflow tab becoming the default experience. So Bubble launched this, I think, maybe a month or two back, and you have the option to toggle this on, but now it's the default UI for everybody. And the response from the community has been a combination of intense hate, and some people absolutely love it. Like this comment from No Code Phil, he just said, "Thanks, I hate it." Other people responded on Twitter. Some people loved it. Like he just said, "It takes time to get used to, but I love it. Thanks." Dale says the new one is much better. You just need to get used to it. Also, Grid View emulates the old one a little bit. So some people really hate it, some people love it. I think this is similar to, about 2 or 3 years ago when Bubble changed the editor in fact, they changed the responsive engine from the old one to the new one. And I remember when that happened, a lot of people were pissed off and annoyed. But looking back and looking at the quality of applications that I'm now able to build based on the changes they made to the responsive engine, I think it was a good move. So hopefully this new workflow tab is going to be the same. It's been a bit annoying having to sort of reorganize your workflows so that they make sense to you. So that's a bit annoying, but hopefully in the long term, we'll look back at this change and be like, you know what, they did the right thing. So another update that they recently launched is native support for API streaming. A lot of people have been requesting this with the advent of LLMs and AI models that take a bit of time to process the output. Just being able to stream the output as it goes through the inference process is really powerful. This is a really nice update, and it's good that Bubble is doing things like this. So the next thing we want to talk about is this email that came through from Bubble, and they were informing us users that they've made some updates to the Bubble terms. So I actually took some time to look at these updates and get an understanding of what they're about. The ones that I paid special attention to are the marketplace and the data processing agreement. For the marketplace changes, there wasn't anything striking that's changed about the policies. What I actually did find interesting is this clause on Bubble plugins, where Bubble gives you a price range that you can charge for different plugins, which is interesting. I didn't know that you actually get a guidance from Bubble with regards to how much you can actually charge for your plugin, and that there's an actual limit for how much you can charge. You can't charge more than $5,000 for a plugin. So this was super interesting. I'm sure if you built a plugin, this is common knowledge, but for me, it wasn't something new that I learned and decided to just share it with the community. And then moving on to the data processing addendum. This was actually quite interesting, but it was just so long and I really didn't want to read all of this. So what I did is I took this text, I just copied the text and I put it into Notebook LM from Google. I'm sure most of you have used this, but if you haven't, it's basically a system that helps you understand dense and complex information in a more accessible way. And the way that I enjoy the most is where it turns this text into a podcast. So essentially, I took this and then I gave it a prompt to create a podcast talking about what's in the data processing addendum. And the prompt that I used to get this podcast is give me a summary of how Bubble handles data protection. I want to get a high level and somewhat detailed understanding of how Bubble handles data so that when I talk to enterprise clients, I can explain it in a clear and concise manner. If any specific data protection laws are mentioned, give me a quick explanation and some insights into that specific law. The reason why I did that is when I was skimming through the DPA, I saw this part about California Consumer Privacy Act. I never heard of this one. Most of us speak of GDPR in the Bubble ecosystem because that's one of the biggest, but this is also there. So I asked it to explain this in the podcast. And the output is really good. I'm just going to play maybe 30 seconds of it at, let's just speed this up. Let's do it at 1.5 speed. And then
welcome to the deep dive. So you're building cool stuff on Bubble, maybe scaling up, and suddenly you hit that point where enterprise clients start asking the tough questions, especially about data.
Yeah, data protection. It's huge. And they want to know, how is their data being handled? Is it safe? Is it compliant?
Exactly. And wading through legal documents like Bubble's data processing addendum, the DPA, can feel, well, a bit much if you just need the key points for a client meeting.
Right. It's dense stuff.
Yeah.
But super important.
So our mission today is to unpack that debate. We want to pull out the essentials so you can talk confidently about Bubble's data protection practices without needing a law degree.
So it's like
Okay, cool. So yeah, it really broke it down in a very concise and accessible manner. It's 14 minutes long. I've also added the link to this audio if you want to listen to it below in the comment section. And yeah, it's a really great way to consume dense information that really helps you as a Bubble developer just become more professional and handle more complex discussions, especially as you start dealing with more enterprise clients. So yeah, have a look at it down in the comment. And the last thing I want to talk about is what's been happening in the Bubble ecosystem. So starting off with the Bubble AI Challenge. So this was a challenge pushed out by Bubble where they're trying to get people to utilize their AI builder to build applications from scratch. When they initially launched it, it was $1,000, and I think people just weren't interested. So they upped the amount to 5,000, and I think more people started to engage. And these are the winners. So I actually took some time to look at the things that they created and get an understanding of what Bubble's AI can accomplish. Granted, this is a combination of them utilizing the AI to build the initial structure of the application and then improving it. And from all of these, the most interesting one for me was the Bubble choice from Nailan Barbosa. Is from Brazil, and what he built is a game, which is interesting. When you think of Bubble, you don't necessarily think of games, you think of business applications, mobile apps, but yeah, he decided to build a game, and I think he did a decent job pulling it off. So if you want to try out this game, I've also put the link down in the description. And I've created an account, and how it works is you've got this click to spin, and you hit the wheel, and it's got this sound in the background. I'm just gonna turn it down. In fact, I'm gonna mute just so it doesn't interfere with my audio, but there's this music sound that's in the background. And every time you spin, it takes you to another event or a question. So the concept of the game is you're a Bubble developer. It's the game of Bubble. It's like what a typical Bubble developer goes through. So every time you spin this wheel, you land on a different event. So right now I've landed on a career event where I led a successful product launch, right? And then I'm gonna spin it again and it takes me to another event. This was actually pretty interesting because from time to time it actually then asks you a question about Bubble, which is a fun way to learn about Bubble and improve your knowledge. And it says, how can users add extra features to their app in Bubble by editing CSS, by installing plugins, by enabling dev mode, or by writing PHP? And it's obviously number two. that's one of the easiest ways to add functionality to your Bubble application. So overall, it's a really cool concept. I've never seen a Bubble application like this, and I can see why Bubble chose him as their choice for the most interesting app. So the next person that won is Ayobami. What he built is an application for rentals, essentially a directory for rentals where you can come in, search, and find information about renting places. I think he said he's focused on student accommodation in Nigeria, around Nigerian universities. So I had a look at it, and I think the design is pretty good. I think it's very clean, modern, minimalist, not a lot going on, straight to the point. If this is what Bubble is spitting out, I think it's pretty decent. I think it's a good example to show what's possible with Bubble's AI, what it can actually produce when you give it a good prompt and direction, especially on the design side. This app is not fully functional, but I think it's definitely a good start to get you going. Obviously, there are improvements that you can make, like this is a bit cluttered here, this is distorted. There are things that you can improve, but it's definitely a good start. And then some other interesting stories from the community is this showcase article that came out where they spoke to the founder of Odyseek. I think that's how you say it, Odyseek. And I watched the video where she spoke about how she built the application. Her name is Marina. I'm not going to even try to read the last name, but she gave a really good breakdown of her process, the vision. And I think what impressed me most is just how clean and elegant her application looked. I think she's done a decent job in structuring the app in a very beautiful and easy to navigate manner. Even the landing page, I think I like a lot about the landing page and the application itself. So what the application does is it's an AI resume builder, but it also does the analysis side. You can use it as an individual looking for a job, or you can use it as a company that's analyzing CVs as they come in, which is pretty interesting. I like the structure of it. It seems very intuitive and easy to utilize. And there was a part where she showcased the workflows had to connect to make all of this work. It was really powerful. She used another platform. I forgot what the name of the platform is that she's using to process her AI workflows, and that looked also quite powerful. So overall, it was a very interesting video, and I think this is a great app. So yeah, I wish her the best with this project. Another interesting thing that happened in the community was the launch of BuildPrint. So this is an application that allows you to document your Bubble application, which is so important because a lot of Bubble applications aren't well documented. So something that auto-generates the documentation of complex Bubble applications solves problems for so many people. And this was launched by George Collier. I think he's from Not Quite Unicorns, which is a dev agency. So from my research and my understanding is they built this as an internal tool to help them understand applications that they got from other developers. So they were in a scenario where they would get projects from clients and they were getting applications that were built by other developers. And they had to go through the process of understanding what was going on and then trying to improve it. So they built this thing as an internal tool, and now they've launched it to the community. And I think it's a really great addition to the community. I think it's going to be a powerful tool. I'm keen to get started with this. Probably going to start this on Monday and run it through some of my applications and see what's possible. I also saw already on Twitter people already talking about the possibility of this being bought by Bubble. Let's see. They posted a tweet about it and people started responding. And the most interesting one was from Will Hawkins, and he was saying Bubble needs to hire you yesterday. I don't think Bubble is going to hire him, but there's a strong possibility that they might buy this from him. If they don't buy it, they'll probably do this themselves. I have a feeling this is the type of application that's going to go the Flux route, where Flux built something internal. Bubble eventually saw the value of it and went into a deal to acquire it. So yeah, depending on how this goes, I think this is where they're going to go. And yeah, it's a really exciting addition to the ecosystem. And then lastly, to close things off, we want to talk about the events that are happening in the Bubble ecosystem. So this looked very interesting. Building autonomous AI agents with Bubble. It's £40 for this course, and it's being offered by Tom. Yeah, I think this is an in-person event that's going to be in London. So if you're around those areas, I think you should probably try check this out if this is something that you're interested in. And then the last thing is Find a Dev Day, which is hosted by Kelly Close, a one-day event where Bubble developers register, and it's like a speed dating between
It's
Bubble
$20.
developers and clients. So clients come in, they already have projects that they want completed, and all they're looking for is the right developer. So if you're interested in this, you can sign up, and hopefully you can get a good contract for yourself from this. So that's it. That's the end of Bubble News. If you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comments section. I'm thinking of doing these once a month. On the first Monday of every month, I'll release a video like this. If I missed anything, please just let me know in the comment section, and hopefully next month we can do a better job with this. So that's it. Good luck with everything that you're doing in the Bubble ecosystem. Cheers, guys.